Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into something pretty interesting today, almost a contradiction, really, from the latest cyber claims data.
Uh-huh.
If you just look at insured companies, right, for the first half of 2025, well, claim frequency notifications stayed flat. And get this, the average severity actually dropped by over 50%.
Yeah, on the surface, that sounds great, doesn't it? Like maybe we're finally turning a corner.
Exactly. You'd think CISOs are nailing it.
But it's a bit of a misleading snapshot, unfortunately. While that drop in severity is real, and it does suggest better defenses are working for those insured companies, the overall risk landscape for everyone, it's actually getting much, much bigger.
Okay, so that's what we're digging into.
Right. We're looking at the Allianz Commercial Cybersecurity Resilience 2025 report today. And our mission really is to figure out why we have this seemingly positive insurance data at the exact same time that, global cybercrime is just exploding and what even counts as a cyber loss is changing fundamentally.
That's the puzzle, yeah. The main challenge seems to be the scope of potential loss just keeps widening. It's moving beyond those, classic direct hacks we used to focus on.
Totally.
Now we're seeing huge, really severe losses driven by things maybe we didn't worry about as much before, like supply chain issues, simple tech failures, and, wow, really sophisticated social engineering.
The conversation used to be all about intrusion prevention, firewalls, that sort of thing. Now the risk isn't just keeping people out, it's about managing contracts, dealing with the human element, navigating this really tough regulatory environment that keeps changing.
It's definitely complex.
Yeah.
And it's moving so fast it feels like it's almost too much for internal teams to handle all by themselves.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So before we get into how the attackers are actually changing their game, we should probably acknowledge that good defense needs good resources. We want to thank our sponsor, www.cisomarketplace.com, and www.cisomarketplace.services.
Right. They offer specialized solutions, expertise, things that are pretty critical for dealing with this complicated defense world we're talking about.
Okay, so the attacker's playbook. The report mentions this great migration. If the big companies are seeing lower severity claims, what does that actually mean? Where are the attackers going? Are they just giving up on the big fish?
No, not giving up exactly, but they are thinking about return on investment. Big multinational corporations, especially in the US and Europe, they've spent a lot hardening the basics. Things like MFA, keeping systems patched.
They've raised the barrier to entry.
Exactly. They've raised the bar. So attackers are looking for a new sweet spot. And that sweet spot, it's definitely looking like mid-sized and smaller firms.
Right, makes sense. Probably less resilient, maybe smaller security budgets, fewer dedicated staff.
That's generally the case, yeah. And the data really backs this up. Look at the difference ransomware was involved in, 88% of data breaches at small and medium firms? Compare that to only 39% at large firms. That's a huge gap.
Wow, 88 versus 39.
Yeah. And for smaller companies, cyber incidents, they're now ranked as the absolute #1 risk in the Allianz Risk Barometer. They're just seen as the path of least resistance.
And the tactics themselves are changing too, right? It's less about just encrypting everything and demanding a ransom.
Right. We're hearing double extortion all the time now, data theft, exfiltration, that's often the main event, then maybe encryption.
So if stealing the data is the goal,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't that kind of flip the script for CISOs? Like maybe data mapping and tracking become even more important than just guarding the perimeter?
Absolutely. Data exfiltration is driving the big losses now because, frankly, it's often easier and quicker for the attackers than trying to encrypt an entire complex corporate network.
Oh, okay.
The implication is huge. Like you said, you've got to secure the data wherever it goes, not just where it sits. And look at the cost impact for the first half of 2025. 40% of the really big cyber claims, over €1 million, involved data theft. That's up quite a bit from 25% the year before.
40%. And I think I saw something even more striking.
Yeah, the value, right?
The losses involving data theft were more than double the value of those that didn't involve it. Double.
Exactly. And then you add on the potential fines, the regulatory heat from privacy breaches. It all pushed the average global data breach cost to a record high, almost $5 million in 2024.
$5 million. I mean, for a lot of mid-sized companies, that is their entire annual IT budget. Puts the stakes right there, doesn't it?
It really does. So, okay, if encryption is maybe taking a backseat sometimes and the focus is on getting in quick and grabbing data, that brings us right back to that perennial weak link.
the human element.
Bingo. Around 60% of breaches in 2024 involved a human element somehow, often super targeted social engineering, or maybe exploiting a vulnerability at one of their suppliers.
It's all about getting the keys to the kingdom, isn't it? Compromised credentials, usernames, passwords, maybe phish or vished out of someone. That's now the top way ahead of malware now.
The shift is really stark. 80% of attacks in the past year were apparently malware-free. Think about that, up from just 40% back in 2019.
80%, wow.
It tells you the sophistication isn't necessarily in complex code anymore. It's in manipulating people.
And the speed they operate at.
Oh, yeah, that's what's really concerning. It's often helped by these access brokers who just sell the initial foothold. You look at groups like Scattered Spider, they hit retailers, casinos. They showed they could go from getting one person's account login to deploying ransomware across the network in less than 24 hours.
Under a day. That's terrifying speed.
It is. Their success comes down to finding that one weak link, that one set of credentials, and exploiting trust really, really quickly.
And this just feeds into the whole AI accelerator discussion, doesn't it? Generative AI isn't just helping craft a slightly more convincing phishing email.
No, it's about scale. Massive scale of hyper-personalized attacks. We're talking attackers potentially using deepfake voices for phishing calls or highly individualized messages sent out automatically to thousands. It just dramatically increases the chances of that 60% human vulnerability being exploited.
Which demands more specialized defenses, right?
It does. And if you look at where the big claim money has gone since 2020, sector-wise, manufacturing is way out front at 33%. Then professional services at 18%, and retail at 9%.
Why retail specifically, right now, in the first half of 2025?
Well, think about it. High revenues, usually huge volumes of customer data, often their security maturity isn't quite at the level of, say, banking, and they are incredibly vulnerable to business interruption, especially during peak shopping times. They're a tempting target.
So you've got these complex third-party risks, the constant threat against employees, AI making attacks smarter and faster. It really does feel like relying just on your internal team isn't enough anymore.
It's a huge ask for any single organization. You really need specialized help, robust platforms to stay ahead. Navigating this new environment, it really requires strategic access to external solutions, expert advice.
Absolutely. And to effectively handle things like AI scaling threats or managing those critical supplier connections, having the right resources is key.
Which is why, if you are looking for those professional services, tools, solutions designed for these complex challenges, it's worth checking out our sponsor, www.cisomarketplace.com and www.cisomarketplace.services.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit now. We've talked about attackers, but the report also highlights this expanding risk landscape. Stuff that's not driven by external attacks at all, but still causes massive losses.
Yeah, this is super important for understanding the kind of breadth of coverage companies need now. These non-attack incidents could be anything from a tech failure to a big regulatory fine. They accounted for a record 28% of the value of large claims analyzed in 2024.
28%. So nearly a third of the big money losses weren't even traditional hacks.
Exactly. And the biggest single driver in that category? Supply chain catastrophe. Contingent business interruptions, CBI, related to supply chains. That's shot up to 15% of large claims value in the first half of 2025. Just the year before, it was only 6%.
It's a huge jump, almost tripled.
It's pretty scary because these CBI losses can come from an attack on a supplier or just a technical fault at a key supplier. The report mentioned a 136% increase in cloud intrusions in the first half of 2025.
Wow.
And it's just incredibly hard for any company to really control the operational stability of a major IT vendor, right? If your core cloud provider, your SaaS platform, whatever it is, if it goes down because of a bug, a misconfiguration, or yes, a hack, your business might just stop dead.
And it's not just suppliers causing internal issues, technical faults, plain old human error. They're showing up as major loss drivers too. Made up 10% of large claims value in 2024.
Yeah, that massive CrowdStrike outage last year. Perfect example.
Right. That wasn't malicious. It was a technical issue. But it caused chaos globally across so many sectors. Healthcare, transport. It proved that sometimes a glitch can be just as costly, maybe even more so, than a big ransomware attack.
And then layering on top of all this risk, you have the litigation surge. Data privacy rules and the lawsuits that follow. They now account for 18% of large claims value. That's triple what it was just 3 years ago.
Triple.
Yeah. Litigation hit crazy levels in 2024. Something like 1,500 data privacy class actions filed in the U.S. alone. Companies are really struggling to keep up, not just with all the different state privacy laws, but also these emerging risks like potential AI liability around how data is collected and used.
Okay, so the backdrop is definitely getting darker, broader. But we started this conversation with that little glimmer of hope, right? The stable frequency and falling severity for insured companies.
Right.
It really suggests that investing in resilience, getting those controls in place, it really is paying off. That stability for insureds looks very different from the, was it $16.6 billion in internet crime losses reported to the FBI last year overall.
It really highlights this widening gap. Insured companies seem to be maturing faster, probably because the insurance process forces certain standards. There was a stat in the report about Germany, I think. Loss impact for insured companies rose about 70% over 4 years. But the overall economic impact of cybercrime in Germany, up 250% in the same period. So being insured, having those controls, it really seems to mitigate the exposure significantly.
And there's a massive financial reason to get it right. This brings us to that 1,000x advantage idea in the report.
Yeah, that was a powerful illustration. They used a manufacturing company scenario. If an attack gets detected and shut down before the attacker gets admin rights, maybe the cost is around $20,000. Manageable, right?
Relatively, yeah.
But if you miss it, if it escalates, leads to business interruption, maybe a ransom payment, huge restoration costs. That same incident could balloon to $20 million.
From 20,000 to 20 million. That's 1,000 times difference.
Exactly, a 1,000-fold difference purely based on how quickly you detect and contain it. And here's the kicker. The report found that in over 80% of large claims, the insured company's own decisions or lack of action significantly impacted how big the final loss was.
80%. So it really put the focus back on preparedness, doesn't it? Incident response planning, making sure basics like MFA, patching, network segmentation are actually working properly.
Absolutely. And that preparedness piece includes things like training, running tabletop exercises so people build that muscle memory, that confidence. Business interruption is still the biggest single cost driver, over 50% of claim value. So having a BI plan that you've actually tested, that's crucial.
And what about AI? We talked about it helping attackers. Does it help defenders too?
Oh, definitely. We have to flip the script there. The data shows organizations using AI and automation for their security saved, on average, about $2.2 million in breach costs compared to those who didn't.
2.2 million saved.
Yeah. AI helps defenders speed up detection, speed up response, basically narrowing that critical time gap between when a breach happens and when you shut it down. That's the exact factor that determines whether you're looking at a 20,000 euro problem or a 20 million one.
Gotcha. And finally, regulation. You mentioned NIS2 and DORA in Europe.
Right. These are imposing pretty serious security requirements across critical sectors and, importantly, across their supply chains, too. This kind of regulatory floor should, hopefully, raise the minimum standard for everyone.
Which should especially help those mid-sized companies that are, as you said, the new favorite target right now.
Exactly. It benefits them disproportionately if the baseline everywhere gets higher. So you see this convergence: regulation, insurance requirements, companies investing in tech. It all pushes towards better resilience. And as everything keeps getting more digital, that global cyber insurance market is expected to more than double by the end of the decade, nearly $30 billion. The need for expert tools, services, advice, it's only going up.
Which brings us back to thanking our sponsor one last time for supporting this deep dive. www.cisomarketplace.com and www.cisomarketplace.services. Building that resilience clearly requires ongoing effort and access to the best resources and professional help you can get.
So, if we try to synthesize all this, what's the main takeaway? I think it's that the positive data for insured companies, it's real proof that investing in mature controls and preparedness genuinely reduces the financial hit from big losses.
I get it.
But the strategic shift needed now for everyone is moving beyond just trying to prevent breaches, because some will inevitably happen, and really focusing on rapid detection, fast containment, and having plans to manage these non-attack risks. The CBI from suppliers, the tech failures, and this relentless rise in privacy litigation.
Okay, so we'll leave you, the listener, with a final thought to maybe chew on for your own strategic planning.
Right.
We know AI is being adopted fast by both attackers and defenders. We know the share of big claims coming from privacy litigation has already tripled. So what's the next big compliance or liability headache likely to be driven by AI systems themselves, maybe systems that help collect or use data in ways that turn out to be unauthorized?
Right.
Could that become the next major non-attack loss driver you need to start budgeting for, something to keep an eye on as you assess your risk?